Sebastian Rogers, an autistic teenager from Hendersonville, Tennessee, has been missing since February 26 of 2024. His stepdad, Chris Proudfoot, and his mother, Katie Proudfoot, don't appear to be looking for him. Stepdad Chris has been married 5 times. That's both a fact and a red flag. Wife number 4, Nina Gomez, gave Trevor Lee an interview 10 months ago, and in it, she painted quite a disturbing portrait of Chris and Katie Proudfoot. Nina, having been married to Chris, although briefly, and sharing a daughter with him named Faith, knows Chris well. I recently re-listened to Nina's interview to better understand what it's like dealing with Chris Proudfoot, especially when he becomes your adversary. And if what Nina said is true, then if you are in any type of battle with Chris, you are also at battle with his mother, Kathy Bowersox, his stepfather, Terry Bowersox, his sister, Melissa, his biological father, Mr. Proudfoot, and his stepmother, Linda Proudfoot, as well as his mother's brother, a dude they call Big D. But it's not what you think. His name is Duran. And I'll also add the police in Gallatin, Tennessee, where the Bowersox live, because they seem to be on very friendly terms with the Proudfoots and the Bowersox. So to me, the Proudfoots and the Bowersox, or what I call the P&B Clan, or the Foot and Socks, are a united clan. They stick together like people without toilet paper, and they play dirty, if we are to believe Nina. Twice, this clan worked in unison to orchestrate the nabbing of baby Faith, the child that Chris and Nina had together. The clan appears to be a well-oiled machine with the means, an overall lack of morality, and the political connections, Gallatin, Tennessee Police Department, you know who you are, to railroad a young mother without deep pockets, Nina Gomez. Re-listening to what this P&B Clan pulled on Nina, her 2 older children from another marriage, and baby Faith, drives home for me that they will do whatever is necessary to get what they want. They do not care if they traumatize little children. They don't care if those kids, including Faith, are left with emotional scars. And they don't care if Faith's mother, Nina, is kept away from Faith, even when Faith was a small baby, just beginning to bond with her as a mother. Let me point out that these are my opinions based on the stories that Nina told. And although she's not often talked about, Faith is a victim in Sebastian's case. Faith knew Sebastian. He was her big brother. She cared about him. And now she knows that he went missing from her father's house. And I wonder if that scares her. Nina described an incident when Faith was a newborn in which either Chris or his mother, Kathy Bowersox, tossed Faith over to Nina. Thankfully, Nina caught Faith before she fell on the cement. If that's true, it shows how demented, vindictive, and careless these people are. And again, if Nina's stories are true, then Katie Proudfoot ain't no wilting flower who's being controlled out of fear by Chris Proudfoot. The cruelty Katie helped inflict on Nina and her children should be a crime. So lest you fear Katie is a victim, let me say, nay, that does not appear to be the case. Let's now talk about 2 of the premeditated, pre-planned attacks on Nina. And I'm going to say allegedly because none of these people have been charged. Nobody's gone to jail for anything. So this is what Nina says, and so we have to trust in Nina. Nina met Chris when she was 35. She'd already been married and divorced and had a 7-year-old daughter, Isabel, and a 3-year-old son, Noah. She met Chris on a dating website. I'm assuming he left out the part about having been married 3 times in his bio. Now, according to Nina, Chris came off as a great guy in the beginning. He made a couple of trips to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Nina lived, and he quickly asked her to marry him, and Nina said yes, even though she barely knew him. They moved to San Diego into naval housing because Chris was in the Navy. Nina brought Isabel and Noah, and again, everything was great at first. Nina was able to be a stay-at-home mom for this period, but over time, she said Chris changed. Soon they were arguing. Nina said a lot of it had to do with how he disciplined her children. He once spanked 3-year-old Noah very hard and said, well, he should get used to it because he needs to be a man. He also once backhanded 7-year-old Isabel, who had braces, splitting her lip in the process. He often would make her 2 kids stand in the corner for who knows what transgressions. Soon, Nina got pregnant with Faith, and when she told Chris, he wasn't happy. In fact, he didn't want her to keep the child, but Nina was adamant she wasn't going to get rid of the baby. Because of Chris's callous behavior toward Nina and her kids, she moved home to New Mexico. In fact, she ended up having the baby there without Chris present. You have to wonder, why did Chris get married to Nina so quickly? And why does he marry so often? Remember, Nina is wife number 4. You think he would have learned something in the first 3 marriages. Now, Chris Proudfoot likes to brag that he's a strict parent. I think what he really is a man who enjoys doling out physical and emotional punishments to little kids who can't fight back. Just my opinion. But he doesn't sound like a big teddy bear that kids would want to cuddle with. Instead, he sounds like a scary grizzly bear that you don't want to poke. So Chris didn't arrive at the hospital until after Nina had baby Faith. And Nina said he was so rude and hateful to the staff and to her that he nearly got kicked out of the hospital. And Chris wasn't eager to hold his new baby. He wasn't warm and loving to Nina. He didn't say anything kind like, "Thank you for bringing our baby into the world." And what happened was, baby Faith soon became an object that Chris and the P&B gang wanted total control over. It's weird that Chris didn't want the baby at first, and then when the baby arrives, suddenly he wants total control over the baby. It sounds like he quickly rejected Nina, rejected her 2 kids from her first husband, rejected her parents as well. According to Nina, Chris refused to stay with her parents at their home because they lived in a trailer, and he wasn't about to stay in a trailer. How cruel is that, especially to the parents of the woman you just married? I'm really shocked that Nina stayed with Chris for as long as she did, but I think she probably loved him. I think she did hope to be a stay-at-home mother, and maybe his work would have allowed her to do that. Maybe that was the original plan, but that's not really how it turned out. And the behavior that Nina describes is that of a person who, in my opinion, is capable of inflicting violence, especially on those who are vulnerable, little children, and women who find themselves far away from home and family. So Faith becomes the golden ticket for Chris and the P&B Clan, and they concoct plans to gain full custody of that baby. The first strategic attack against Nina, allegedly, occurs when Chris encourages her to move away from her parents in New Mexico to live near his family in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Chris coaxes Nina into doing this by telling her that his family will be there to help with all 3 children, Isabel, Noah, and Faith. Now, one of Nina's friends in San Diego warned her that Chris and his mother were plotting to gain full custody of Faith, but Nina kind of blew that off. It sounded too crazy to be true. So she didn't believe it, and she goes to Tennessee with her 2 kids and Faith, even though something in her gut is telling her it's probably not a good idea. Once in Tennessee, far from her parents and home, Nina finds herself living with Chris's mom and stepdad in their house for about a month. Nina said it was very uncomfortable. There was a lot of bickering between Kathy and Terry Bowersox. There were a lot of arguments over her 2 older kids and their behavior. Now, after that month, Nina and the 3 kids move into an apartment. She ends up getting a job at Great Clips. Chris goes back to San Diego for his naval job. So at this point, instead of being able to be a stay-at-home mom, Nina finds herself working from dawn to dusk every day in Great Clips, while baby Faith stays with Kathy Bowersox, and her 2 older kids stay with Chris's biological father and his stepmother. Adding to Nina's distress is a text that she sees on Chris's phone right before he's to fly back to San Diego, and it sounds like it's from a female. So if we are to believe that, it looks like Chris Proudfoot was cheating on Nina, allegedly, and it was likely with Katie Proudfoot. What Chris and his family did was to isolate Nina in Tennessee. So Nina is distressed because she's having to work to make money because her savings are quickly dwindling. She's also distraught because the marriage is crumbling, and she doesn't have any family who loves her nearby. Now, when Nina's daughter had to be hospitalized, baby Faith stayed with the Bowersox, and Noah and Isabel stayed with Chris's sister, Melissa. When Isabel was discharged, Nina went back to the apartment. Melissa soon dropped off Noah, and then they were all waiting to have baby Faith arrive from the Bowersox home. Soon the front doorbell rang, and Nina was really happy because she's thinking that baby Faith is going to be there and she's going to be able to hold her. But instead, it was a female lawyer friend of Kathy Bowersox, and this lawyer hands Nina papers and declares, "You've been served." This is how Nina found out that Chris was divorcing her, and he'd also gotten an order of protection against her so that she could not see Faith. So the P&B Clan conspired to basically steal Nina's baby, allegedly, and deny Nina access to her own child. Nina immediately drove to the Bowersox house to get Faith. When she rang the door, Terry Bowersox answered, and he immediately tells her to get off his effing property. Now, keep in mind that 3-year-old Noah and 7-year-old Isabel were standing behind their mother, hearing all of this go down. According to Nina, Terry then took out a green baseball bat and threatened to basically use it on Nina's, Noah's, and Isabel's head. Can you imagine? And Nina saw Chris inside the house. He was there while she was outside being treated like garbage. So now Nina is still in Tennessee. The Bowersox have taken her baby. They won't give Faith back. And Nina doesn't have a lot of money to hire a lawyer. And Nina believes this was all part of the clan's plans. But Nina did manage to find a kind lawyer named Mr. Edwards, and he agreed to help her because he couldn't believe the horrendous story she told him. This was Nina's nightmare come true. Think about how her bonding with her newborn baby was being disrupted. The long and short of the story is Mr. Edwards managed to get Nina full custody of Faith, but the P&B Clan harassed her before tossing Faith over to her, forcing Nina to catch the baby. And then when Nina, Isabel, Noah, and Nina's father were driving out of town, headed back to New Mexico, the P&B Clan drove behind them, harassing them all the way down the interstate. And Nina believes that all of the Proudfoots and all of the Bowersox were involved in this very sick plot. And again, it also sounds like some of the officers in the Gallatin Police Department were buddies with the Bowersox. They too mistreated Nina and her kids, allegedly. I can understand a family having one bad egg like a Chris Proudfoot, but it sounds like this entire clan is composed of immoral, mean grown-ups. Note how they embraced Faith because she was part of their bloodline, but Nina's other two kids were wholly mistreated by these people, according to Nina. So it's not hard to imagine that the P&B Clan would have rejected Sebastian, a kid who was not of their blood, an autistic boy with chromosomal deletion syndrome, a child that Chris allegedly called Katie's retard, and a child who could not fight back and had to deal with very painful punishments from his stepfather. Chris twice took a belt to Sebastian, at least that we know about. Now, Chris Proudfoot didn't become an abusive man by accident. Kathy and the rest of the clan reared him to be like that, in my opinion. This P&B Clan is like something out of the movie Deliverance. So, the P&B Clan plotted this elaborate scheme to isolate Nina from her parents and friends, deplete her savings, likely in an attempt to make it impossible for her to get an attorney, got a lawyer friend of theirs to write up and deliver an unwarranted order of protection to keep Nina from Faith. It takes a village in this case, a clan, to pull off all of this crap. And there was a second attempt by the P&B Clan to abscond with Faith. The second situation saw Katie Proudfoot play a key role. This time it took place at an airport in New Mexico. This was when Chris had partial custody of Faith. Nina, with her two older kids, and her new partner, a guy named Wayne, drove to the airport with Faith to hand her over to Katie Proudfoot, who was to fly back to Tennessee with Faith. This time, Chris had another process server try to serve papers to Nina in the airport. It occurred right after Nina handed Faith over to Katie. As soon as that took place, a man tried to serve her these papers. Nina didn't know what the papers were for. Knowing what had been done to her in Tennessee with the lawyer showing up at the door, Nina suddenly was afraid that Chris was trying once again to nab Faith. So Nina took off running through the airport, yelling, "They're going to take my baby! They're going to take my baby!" And there was Katie Proudfoot with Faith filming the whole thing. And according to Nina, Katie was allegedly smiling as this horrific scene went down, causing trauma to Nina and also to baby Faith. This was done, Nina believes, to make her look like a crazy mother, an unfit parent to Faith, and this would then be used against her in court. And Chris and Katie then allegedly asked that Nina be given a mental evaluation. So twice, with the help of his family, Chris Proudfoot has tried to take Faith away from Nina. Nina said of Sebastian going missing and Katie and Chris's attempts to get greater custody of Faith that they were maybe trying to replace one child, Sebastian, with another child. Hearing how cruel Chris and company were to Nina, her kids, her parents, makes me wonder what these people are capable of, especially with the alleged help, possibly, of the Gallatin, Tennessee police. If I had to guess, I'd say that the Klan are probably the ones behind the threats that have been made to searchers. Just my opinion. But who else would threaten searchers who are looking for a vulnerable child? And if the P&B Clan did not embrace and love Nina's 2 older children from another man, what makes anybody think that they would see Sebastian as one of their own, a child to embrace, a child to love, a child to help take care of? It's been alleged that Chris called Sebastian Katie's retard. Maybe Chris cannot love a child that he may see as less than, a child with disabilities, a child with intellectual challenges, a child for whom he didn't contribute his own DNA. Did he view Sebastian as a broken child, not worthy of his love? Sort of like the trailer that Nina's parents live in. It wasn't worthy of Chris Proudfoot, in his opinion. It sounds like if Chris decides he no longer loves a wife, he no longer loves a child, then his family will get behind him and do whatever he asks them to. And we know the P&B Clan can keep secrets. They managed to snow Nina Gomez at least 2 times. That's all for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. And this is T of Bed Crime Stories signing off. Love you guys.